right, so this is Joni from Finnish Amusa interviewing the American pianist Andrew Russo. So first off, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. I'm over my jet lag and looking forward to the performance tomorrow.
All right, so if I'm not mistaken, you live in Fayetteville, New York, correct?
Yes, well, I live in a village near Syracuse, actually, called Skaneateles. It's a lakeside village that we just moved to a couple of months ago, but it's quite close to the city of Syracuse in upstate New York.
All right, so you have already arrived in Finland, so when did you arrive, and have you had time to look at the sites?
I arrived in Espoo yesterday, and no, there was no time for sightseeing yesterday, too many rehearsals and trying to catch some sleep. But I have been to Finland before, so it's not my first time. It's probably my sixth or seventh visit to Finland.
Oh.
So I've had my opportunities in the past to see the sites.
All right, so how do you like it here?
Oh, I always have a wonderful time here. I've been coming to Finland for probably about 15 years now, and have met many people along the way, so I always look forward to seeing some old friends and, on top of sharing the music.
Oh, cool. Then you're doing a concert in Espoo at the Louhisali this Saturday. How would you describe what's going to happen to someone who hasn't heard anything about what you do?
Well, this concert is going to be probably a bit different than what people are used to with a piano festival concert or piano recital. It will start out very much like a traditional concert. There will be a two-piano piece by John Adams, and then a piano and electronics piece by Hans Tuchku. These will be like traditional concert pieces. But then in the third part of the program, I am going to play some pieces that are short pieces inspired by different types of rock and pop musicians from the last 40 or 50 years. And so these pieces will involve playing the piano, but some of them also have electronic soundtracks that are behind the music or underneath the music that bring a layer of kind of the pop or rock sounds and rhythms to the piano writing as well. And so it'll feel a little bit less like being in a concert hall, a little bit more like maybe being in a nightclub, where you'll hear these shorter pieces that are kind of catchy and have pop and rock influences in them, and are, again, kind of compositions that come from a classical background, composers with classical training writing these pieces, but that also have a little bit more of the spirit of popular music.
Yes, I was going to ask you actually, when I think of classical music, I think of people like Mozart, and so that being said, I saw your Body of Dreams on YouTube, and it sounded rather cool and contemporary. So what kind of audiences normally come to see you? Well,
I think the music, it tends to appeal to people maybe who are my age or younger. I'm 42 years old, so I think people from my generation and from younger generations tend to like this music automatically. But I also feel that people who are older, come from older generations than mine, and also who just appreciate music in general, find these types of composers and their works to be interesting, because the music it's appealing to listen to, so it doesn't challenge them in the way that certain types of contemporary music that are more academic may challenge their ears. And there's an element of fun in the music that kind of takes a little bit of the seriousness of being in the concert hall away and focus entirely on sort of the spirit and energy of music in a way where people can relax and have fun while they're listening. And I think that can appeal to anyone who enjoys listening experiences that allow them to be a little more relaxed.
Right. So then are your tracks instrumental versions, or are there some lyrics as well?
Some of the pieces will have vocalizations. One piece I will play is actually kind of an arrangement or deconstruction of a piece that is called Born to be Wild. This is actually a rock song, and a quite famous song, Born to be Wild. And in this piece, I have to vocalize throughout. The original lyrics from the song are laid over a piano arrangement of the harmonies from the piece. And there's another piece I'm playing by Aaron J. Kernis, which is essentially a rock and roll piano etude that is inspired by Jerry Lee Lewis. And this piece calls for some vocalizations at the end of the piece, but those vocalizations are, they're not so much lyrics of a song. It's more just to create a certain effect at the end of the piece. And then thirdly, there's a piece, the one you referred to by Jakob Terfeldhaus, Body of Your Dreams. This has texts in it as well, but the texts are part of the electronic soundtrack. So I don't vocalize during the piece, but there are words in the soundtrack that are a big part of the composition's effect.
Yeah, interesting. Then let's talk about you for a second. You're a pianist, but at what age did you start playing?
4 years old.
Right, okay. It's been a while then.
Yes, I've been playing, that makes it 38 years now.
Yeah, then being that you're from the state of New York, what's your relationship with the so-called piano man, my own personal favorite, Billy Joel?
Well, I've been to see him perform, and I have been a fan of his music ever since I was a child as well. But I don't know him personally. I can say that one record that I made a few years ago, it included a composition based on one of his earlier tunes, a tune called Rosalinda's Eyes, which is a less-known Billy Joel tune. But a Brooklyn-based composer named J.C. Sanford did a composition based on that piece for me, and I performed it several times and recorded it on a record. So great admiration for his work, definitely.
Are we going to hear this piece in Espoo?
This piece isn't on the program in Espoo, but it is on one of the records which I did bring to make available at the concert. And this record is called Dirty Little Secrets, and I will have that album available at the concert, and it contains this Rosalinda's Eyes piece on that record.
Okay, cool. Then I also hear that you're politically active and a Republican. So may I ask you what you think of the political atmosphere in the United States at the moment? Or would you prefer not to comment?
No, I'm happy to comment. I think it's a challenging atmosphere right now, particularly because we have, for the first time in our country, we have someone who is serving as president who has no background in politics and who has a personality that seems to thrive on creating confrontation. So yeah. It's a different style, and I think that in some situations, I think it can be effective, and in others, less so. But in general, I think there's just a sense of unease because people aren't used to someone with this personal style, having this level of power over the country and its relationships with other countries. So we'll see what happens. I mean, so far it's been a bumpy ride, but I think that as people get accustomed, typically I think once someone becomes accustomed to a person's tactics, that you settle into a new environment of interaction and competition and whatnot. So that's what I think we'll see happen in the next few years, is now that everybody's been able to absorb this new normal, that they'll react accordingly, and we'll see what that leads to.
Yeah, that's a great answer, I think. Then you're also a businessman, so what can you tell us about that?
Well, I have, over the last 7 or 8 years, I've built a career in the financial world, and primarily, that is my focus now, is that work. I have an investment company, and I have a tax advisory business, and I'm on the faculty of a business school in the city where I live, teaching finance topics to undergraduate students. So this is, what I think is interesting is I find that because I don't spend all of my time inside the world of concert music any longer, that I have much more enjoyment for the craft of performing on the piano and working with composers and working with production crews around concerts, because I don't do it all the time now. So it's more of a pleasure than a job. And that's the one thing I think, having pursuits outside of music, the value it brings is that I find just the level of pleasure and sensation around the music becomes enhanced when it's not something you do every day, 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock.
Right, yeah. I was going to ask you, like, being a businessman and playing the piano at concerts sounds like an interesting combination that you kind of touched on that. Then I have my last question. Again, being a businessman, what would your final kind of like elevator pitch be like to make people come see you in Espoo this Saturday at 7:30 p.m. at the Louhisali?
Well, the reason I would encourage people to come is I think that going to a concert should be a joyful experience that people should remember. They should remember when they go to a concert, and I guarantee if they come to this concert on Saturday night that they will remember this concert.